Jesus didn't lead with fear. He led with love that transformed people. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this leadership edition. Today I want to talk about grace-based leadership. Grace-based leadership. Before we jumped on this call today, I was remembering a book I read several years ago as a father, a younger father, that is, grace-based parenting. And it was a great book and helped me shape my parenting as a father, and not bringing on too much grace and not enough truth, or too much truth and not enough grace. So we're going to dive into all of that right now. So grace-based leadership is leading like Jesus in perhaps a performance-driven world. And so this is a kingdom concept this morning. And a grace-based leadership leads from identity, not insecurity. Wow, so many people lead from a place of insecurity. You know, I'm the leader, right? John Maxwell talks about the different levels of leadership, and then you see it, because leadership, everything flows out of it, right? From the top down. And so it's very important that we have this right. But it's serving from identity and not insecurity, and serving people and developing potential in people, and as Christians, reflecting a heart of Christ. There's a scripture that describes Christ's character, and that's John chapter 1, verse 14. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we saw his glory as glory as the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. So that's his characteristic. He's full of grace and truth. He's a God of love. He's a God of truth. He's also a God of war and a God of judgment. That side of him we don't like, right? We want him to just be the God of truth and mercy and love. And he is all those things, but then he would not be a just God if he was not all of that. 2 Corinthians chapter 12:9, he said that his grace is sufficient for us. How many know that we need his grace? And I look forward to his grace, but he corrects those that he loves, right? It's also there in the scriptures. So we want to understand what grace-based leadership is, and so we're going to dive into that. So grace-based leadership is leading people the way God leads us through love, patience, truth, forgiveness, and empowerment, right? That's a great way to lead others, whether we're leading our family, or we're leading a small group, or we're leading a company, or we're pastoring, whatever the case may be. These are some great characteristics, some traits to have when we lead other people through love, patience, truth, forgiveness, and empowerment. So grace is not weakness. Grace is not weakness. Grace is not avoiding the truth. And grace is not lowering standards. But grace is strength under control. Grace is truth wrapped in love. Grace is accountability with restoration, right? So there's that, both parts there. It's that, maybe you've heard the expression of tough love, right? It's bringing it in. And Jesus led with both grace and truth. He never excused sin, but he never discarded people. And so oftentimes when we get in a role of leadership, we have to say everyone has to follow the rules, the rules, the rules, the rules. And yes, we do have to follow the rules, but not everybody can live by them. My goodness, look in the Old Testament, the laws that were put out there that the people were failing regularly because laws can get us into a place where we become legalistic, and then there's no grace. But thank God, Jesus came and was the fulfillment of the law, and he brought grace to the scene. And so there's that mixture of both, that we are being transformed daily, right? He's changing us. We're growing from glory to glory to glory. So performance-based versus grace-based leadership. So performance-based leadership, you are valued for what you do, right? On the grace-based side, you are valued for who you are. From a performance-based leadership, you're fear-driven, and the grace-based perspective, you are love-driven motivation, right? And for performance, it's shame used as a tool. For grace-based, it's correction with restoration. For performance, it's people feel disposable. How many times have you seen that person? How many of you experienced that, right? You were working a job and you were just considered a number rather than a person. But that versus people feel seen and safe in a grace-based leadership perspective. And then in a performance-based leadership, success is everything. We've got to hit the quotas. It's just all about that. And then there's the grace-based leadership, that growth matters more than image. Growth matters more than image. I wrote an article a couple of years ago, and I can't remember the title at the moment. Oh, the 3 Ps to ministry success. It is the people, the process, and the product. The people, the process, and the product. The people are number one, right? If your people aren't right, I don't care what you do or what you sell, it's going to be a disaster. It's very important that we have the right people first in place, but that we value those people. People that are valued will value other people. So if you have a team of people that you are valuing, they're going to value the customers. And then there's a process by which we do things. And, it's how we do a thing. And then lastly, it's the product. So the product is the last thing that we concern ourselves about. Because if we don't have the people part down or the process down, it doesn't matter what we're selling. Okay? So that's something to think about. Performance says, prove yourself, and grace says, you belong, now grow. How can we grow together? I often write the word grow with a big capital G and a capital O, right? There's go and grow. Here's a concept that I wanted to really bring out this morning. Truth only versus grace only versus grace and truth, right? A truth-only leadership is heavy on the rules and light on relationship. It's all about the rules. I don't care what's been going on in your life. You've got to do the job and do it right. But sometimes we can't do it right. Sometimes we've experienced a loss. Sometimes we're suffering some hardship. Sometimes we're sick, but we chose to come into work anyway. to push through. Truth-only leadership is correct, but cold. I remember the writer of the book Love and Respect, and he was talking about his a discussion he and his wife had following a party. And on the way home, she was telling him about how he acted and how he made her feel at the party. And then he paused at the end of her statement and said, "Honey, you're right, but you're wrong at the top of your voice." Meaning she was right in addressing him, but wrong in her approach and how she did it and how she talked to him, right? So you can be correct, but cold, right? Truth-only leadership uses fear more than faith. People feel judged in this climate and not helped. And then it produces compliance, but not transformation. And then a truth-only leadership perspective often say the right things the wrong way. So grace-only leadership is loving but unclear, or avoids hard conversations, or low accountability, or people feel affirmed but not formed. And then the atmosphere produces comfort, not growth. So grace-only leaders protect feelings, but neglect destiny, neglect structure, neglect growth. And then grace and truth leadership, this is the Jesus way. This is loving and honest, right? Grace and truth, loving and honest, clear standards with patient process. Oh my gosh, I'm so thankful to God for his long suffering for me. How about you? Wow. You know, I really experienced that attribute of the Lord last year, more specifically. His long suffering for me. It's like, son, when are you going to get it right? You know, I'm here for you, but come on. Accountability with restoration. People feel safe and challenged. And then in this environment of grace and truth leadership, it produces transformation, transforms your life, and makes you what Ken Blanchard calls a raving fan. You're a raving fan of your organization, even if it's working a mama papa shop or some greasy spoon. If you're treated right and treated well, you'll praise that company, right? Because they have a great atmosphere. So truth without grace is harsh. Grace without truth is hollow. Grace and truth together changes lives. Again, John chapter 1, verse 14, Jesus was full of grace, is full of grace and truth. Jesus never chose between them. He carried both of them. So it's bringing both to the table. And some days we're probably going to lean more to one or the other, depending on how we feel. Before Jesus did a miracle, God said, "This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased." Identity came before assignment. Identity came before assignment. He acknowledged that this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. And we all know that Jesus came here with a mission, right? So grace-based leaders speak identity before instruction. They're about building up that person and speaking life into that person. I always tell spouses to show appreciation for the other spouse. And if it's a husband taking out the trash, that's his role, that's his job, so to speak, in the relationship, then say, "Hey, thank you for taking out the trash." Well, why would I say thank you for taking out the trash? It's his job. Well, do you want him to paint the fence and paint the garage and mow the lawn? Then just say, "Thank you for taking out the trash," right? And it just, gratitude goes a long way, doesn't it? It makes a difference. It makes us feel appreciated and makes us want to do more. So grace-based leaders call out potential, not just problems. That's something we can fall in the trap of all the time as parents or as leaders. We're constantly pulling someone on the carpet just to address the negatives. But we also need to call out their potential. God leads through patience. I just shared with you that I thank God for his long suffering for me, right? He leads through patience. God is long suffering, not short tempered. And grace-based leaders lead by allowing learning curves, right? Hey, like I said, there's a growth pattern from glory to glory to glory, right? We're not here yet. We're here, and we've got to get to here. So we need someone who will help nurture us to get to that point. And then grace-based leaders create space for growth, right? And God leads through restoration. God corrects, but he always restores. So grace-based leaders confront privately, restore publicly, and never shame people, right? Never shame people, because we want them to grow. So here's the characteristics of grace-based leadership. They're a grace-based leader, rather. A grace-based leader is secure in their identity. They lead from confidence, not control. They have a servant's heart. They put people before position. They're a patient developer, right? They see process, not just results. They tell the truth. They're a truth teller. They're loving but honest. And lastly, they're a restorer. They help people rise again, right? Let's face it, we've blown it. We've made mistakes. We make mistakes in our jobs or in our positions. And isn't it great to know that we have a leader that will be able to say, look, I see that you blew it. We're going to do better next time. Or how do you think we can grow and do this better next time? Right? We're given an opportunity to process that. So what grace-based leadership looks like in real life, when someone fails, performance-based leadership says, you blew it. Grace-based leadership says, let's fix it and grow together. There's a movie called Soul on Fire that is on Netflix now. It was released in the theaters not too long ago, but it's a story of this boy who was playing with matches. Oh, do I have a story to tell you on that? Playing with matches and ended up burning down his parents' house and being burned on 100% of his body. He had a 1% chance to live. But when his dad arrived at the hospital after this accident took place, he didn't come in the room and say, son, you burned down our house. We have no place to live. We're going to be homeless now. Instead, he said, son, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Wow. Son, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And years later in his life, he remembered that his dad showed love to him in a very, very specific moment in time where he deserved judgment. He was in the hospital because of his stupidity playing with fire. But his father showed him grace instead. So grace-based says, let's fix it and grow. And then there's a grace-based performance that will confront, will care, and restore. When someone is struggling, performance-based does it with pressure. Grace-based does it with support and truth. right? I'm here for you. Let's grow together. Let's learn together, and all of that. And that takes a lot of patience for a leader to do, right? I remember when I was correcting my kids for some things that they did in the past. One of my sons got angry and decided to punch a hole in the wall. So I made my son fix the hole in the wall. But you know what that meant? I had to stand there with him through that process because he didn't know how to do it, number one. And so I had to stand there through that process of him, nope, it's not smooth yet. You got to keep on sanding, right? So I had to be there for that. Another one of my sons decided it would be fun to slide down the handrail into the basement and broke the handrail off the wall. Well, guess who put the handrail back up? Now, I could have done it much quicker than showing them how, but I used it as a teaching experience of how to do that. And so there's a way about doing things, but it means it's going to cost us a little more of our time. And so we've got to be willing to put in the time so that person can grow. And, I was just thinking about this the other day. I had a piano teacher. My piano teacher, I couldn't tell you what he taught me on the piano, but I do remember when Superman, the old television show, was out on TV, and I knew it was coming on, and he said, you know what? We won't do the lessons today. Go ahead and watch that program. And I just remember how that made me feel. Like I got to go and watch this program, and it wasn't all about the learning. It was also about the growing and having both sides of that, right? And so that was very important to me. And of course, I've been playing music my whole life, so it didn't stunt my growth. So when someone is struggling, we've got to look in that direction, right? To offer them support and truth. And then two more steps here. Jesus led with a model of grace-based leadership. He restored Peter after the denial, right? Peter, do you love me? Right? He defended the woman caught in adultery. Where are your accusers now? Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more, right? Go and sin no more, right? He shared that grace and truth. He washed his disciples' feet. Oh, isn't that humbling, isn't it? He washed his disciples' feet. And then here's the big one. Drum roll, please. He forgave from the cross.
Yes.
He forgave others. Thank the Lord.
Yes.
He forgave those. He led by example to show us what it means to forgive. Jesus didn't lead with fear. He led with love that transformed people. He had the power, right? This is what we know. He had the power to take us out.
Yeah.
He had all the rights of stoning that woman who was caught in adultery, right? By law, he had the authority. He said to the guys gathered in that group, he who is without sin cast the first stone. None of them could cast a stone, but he could.
That's right.
But he chose not to. He chose to lead with grace. Hallelujah. That's awesome.
Amen.
Just thinking about that. Okay, so here we go. So ask yourself this question. Do people feel safe to grow around me? Do people feel safe to grow around me? Do I correct to restore, or do I correct to control? Do I speak life only to point out flaws, or do I speak life to produce growth? And lastly, do I lead like Jesus or like a boss? Do I lead like Jesus or like a boss? All right, so here's some discussion questions for us as we wrap up here. So number one, have you experienced performance-based leadership, and how did it make you feel? Have you ever experienced performance-based leadership. Perhaps you are volunteering for an event and the leader of that event was leading with a performance-based perspective, or you've seen it emulated in someone else where they led with a performance-based leadership. What was your experience with that, and how did it make you feel? Here's another one for us. What makes grace-based leadership difficult? What makes grace-based leadership difficult? That goes along with when I told my kids that they were going to replace and fix the wall or fix the handrail, right? I had to stand there and go through this with them because they didn't know how to do it. It took my time. It would have been much easier for me just to fix those things and move on. How many of us are guilty of that? Never teaching a lesson, but always just fixing it because it was easier.
Just do it myself.
Yeah, just do it myself, right?
Yeah.
Then that person never grows and never learns through that. And, perhaps if you ask my kids about those two incidences right there, they might not even remember them. Or they may have came away from that saying, you know what? I got to spend time with my dad, or I learned how to patch a wall, or I learned that there's repercussions for my actions. There's so much that could be learned from that aspect. I'm just not sure which my kids learned out of that, or if they learned anything for that matter. I just wasted my time. It was of no avail. No, it was. I'm sure it was. Okay, where do you need to grow in leading with grace? Last question. Who can you lead more with grace this week? Okay, here's a closing thought as we're coming in for a landing. Grace-based leadership doesn't lower the standard. It lifts people to meet it. Let's face it, there does need to be a standard. There does need to be a benchmark. This is how we run our business, right? Or this is the model that we want to display. Now, in the process, we want to coach people, help people, give people the tools to grow to that level, and hopefully they'll exceed that or want to exceed it. Not just get by, but they'll want to exceed it because they feel like they're in an environment where they're valued, where they're appreciated, and they'll want to aim higher. We don't lead to impress, we lead to become. We lead like Jesus, full of grace and truth. It's important that we lead with, that we go to our leader, that we have accountability to our leader. And perhaps it's more so our Heavenly Father in heaven. We are seeking Him. We're going to Him to receive that grace. And His grace is sufficient for us, right? He adds grace to our life, and that's how we get this grace-based leadership. It's grace and truth. It's both, right? Shared together. Here's the truth. When Jesus was with the woman at the well, right? He could have ridiculed her and belittled her. He said, "Where is your husband?" And she says, "I don't have a husband." He says, "You're right. You've had 5.
Yeah.
But he used such grace in that moment that she was excited, and she went back and told her friends, "Come and see the man that told me everything about my life, that aired my dirty laundry, but still loved me anyway." There you go. Grace-based leadership. Go try it today. Make a difference in somebody else's life.
Yeah. This is good. It was good.